So a bit about me, my background, I have a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology in a university in Southern Ontario. During my 4 years there, I was a student trainer with the athletic therapy department. That's where I started to get this sort of draw to injuries, not just kinesiology being the study of movement. I was more drawn to the injury side of things, much more cooler than just watching people move all day. So then I became a personal trainer, and when I was accepted to chiropractic college in Toronto, I spent the other 4 years doing personal training to generate some income. And really, it's this point here where I start kind of loving the idea of helping people with injuries in an athletic environment, not just the general population. So I signed up for an extra 2 years. So this is ridiculously long at this point. To do a sports residency program where I got to spend 6 months with an orthopedic surgeon, 6 months with a radiologist, all those kind of things. Doesn't make me any more special than any other chiropractor. It just allows me to see more things. And the more things you look for, or the more things you know to look for. And that's what brings me to today's presentation. And then for the last 2 years, I've been doing my Master of Science research at the U of A on ACL reconstructions. So this is 13 years altogether. I haven't made any money, so. Anyway, let's move on. Yeah, right, right. So we're gonna start with an overview. I'm gonna touch on the anatomy, and why I put those quotations around impingement centers around the anatomy and pathomechanics. Really fancy terms, really detailed stuff. In my opinion, in the clinical world and in the training world, probably not that important to nail it down to one specific tendon or one specific ligament. It's too complicated. So that's why I think simple is better. And we'll go over what I look for in a shoulder when somebody comes to see me. And I think that'll put you guys in the driver's seat with your own shoulder in terms of determining whether you need to come and see somebody like me or somebody like Garth, where you need to spend more time training, because there's a big difference there. And then we'll do some practical application of that, where you actually have to move and do things. So I apologize for those of you that worked out really hard today on your shoulder. That's gonna suck. And then we'll go over some summary. We'll have time for questions at the end, lots of time. So that leads me to this fancy mathematical equation. Basically, all we're talking about, to simplify the shoulder or any injury in your body, if the load is too great for the capacity of your shoulder, which includes all those muscles I pointed out, the rotator cuff, the deltoid, the upper trap, the biceps, the triceps, if that load that you're putting on your shoulder exceeds the capacity of those tissues, pretty simple, you're gonna get injured. That's all there is to it. That's the only way I look at it. Somebody comes in with a crappy shoulder tomorrow and says, I hurt my shoulder training. My first go-to is this guy. How much load did you put on your shoulder? How fast did you put it on your shoulder? And how well did you prepare to do that? So in other words, did you have the prerequisites to do the 50 handstands that you did last night in training? And then I take them through this. So this is where I come in. I say, okay, well, it sounds like the load was way too much for your shoulder. Let's let the load equal the capacity. So if you're dealing with an acute tear, probably just gonna start with isometrics. I'm not a big fan of taking people out of the gym. This is a lesson I learned at the last place I worked in. Taking people off platforms is not what I do. Keeping you on the platform and being able to train in this area while you're injured is really, really important, because no matter what, when everybody goes on vacation for 2 weeks, you're gonna lose that neural drive. Or when everybody has to take a break from training because you're gonna lose that neural drive. It's huge, it's a big deal. Which leads to longer stuff down the road, crappier stuff down the road, really. And then here's ideal. This is where I want you to be. This is where everybody in this room should wanna be. I mean, if you're training here 3 or 4 times a week, you really need to be in this area. Being in these two really sucks. You can't train in this area. This is training, where the capacity of your shoulder is stronger than the load that you're doing over the course of a whole workout, not just the time that you're pressing overhead, but throughout the entire workout, day in, day out. So simple is better. What are the prerequisites for movement? In my opinion, they need to be pain-free, and I put a little star besides that pain-free, because pain is relative. Everybody in here trains through pain. I guarantee it. On that last rep, that's painful, right? So what we're talking about is sharp, pinchy pain where you can no longer handle the load that you're trying to place on your shoulder. That's what we're talking about, pain. So if you have that, chances are you're probably dealing with an injury. Full range of movement. When it comes to the shoulder, full range of movement. Remember in the beginning I said there's a ton of variability there? So I just moved my arm around in a circle. I'm going to do it again so you guys can see. But I guarantee you I did it different the second time. So I want to see you move your shoulder joint with all of its variability and crappy but beautiful design with pain-free movement. And it better be full range. If you do your right, that looks something like this from the side. You guys can see from the side, something like that. And then you go to your left and you're like, yeah, I'm good back here. Probably an issue. You probably don't have full range of movement. And then finally, the best part about what I like doing is putting a load on that shoulder. If you have pain-free movement, yes. You've got full range, yes. What happens if I stick a kettlebell on the end of your hand? Oh, then it gets me. Well, that's a different story. So if you can satisfy all these three things, you probably have enough capacity to train with a certain amount of load. That's the way I approach it. And that's really, to me, that's really simplified. There is nothing complicated about that. So you don't need me for this part. Now you're probably wondering why I don't make any money. Or now you probably realize why I don't make money. You don't need me for that. You have your own self-assessment. You guys are all your own best diagnosticians, for sure, for sure. You just need to have the little bit of the right information to determine whether you need to come and pay me or can you manage this on your own. So number one, keep it simple. You have all these three things, but there's something going on where you can't handle that external load or you get pain trying to go through your range. Now we need to pair the pain with something else. Is your shoulder weak? Does it feel weak when you try to lift something? Is it stiff when you try to do this? You can't quite get that end range out of it because of stiffness. Is it unstable where you move your arm around and it goes thunk? That's a bit of a problem. Or is it all or some of the above? Well, I see a lot of people come in with weak and unstable shoulders. It's only weak it only feels unstable because it's weak and painful. So this is where I make my money, is trying to help you with that. But honestly, if you can decide one of three things, is your shoulder weak? Is your shoulder stiff? Or is your shoulder unstable? Then you probably have a pretty good idea whether you need to come and see me or not. So what do these three things mean? Weak, stiff, and unstable. Okay, so let's talk about the practical application now. And we've already gone over the prerequisites, so everybody knows that. Pain-free, and by pain I mean sharp, pinchy type stuff that really sucks. Stiffness, tenderness, all that kind of stuff, you train with that anyway. And you need to draw your own line in terms of what really sucks versus what you can move through. Full range of motion and have an external load. So this is the point where we get to the practical part, where I get to advertise for free that I do this training modality called functional range conditioning. This is the guy that I was telling you about with the wrist business. The functional range conditioning is based on isometrics. And without getting into too much injury recovery, isometrics is what I use every day for people who are injured, regardless whether it's shoulder impingement or anything else for that matter. I use isometrics. So functional range conditioning allows you to go through a routine every morning where you're testing your joint health. And you're deciding, you know what? Yeah, joint health feels pretty damn good today. I think I'm ready to go. Versus, that's pinchy. Probably got to go see that guy who never makes any money. And then the most recent addition to my toolbox is kin stretch, which we're going to do some of that today. Kin stretch is basically the progression of functional range conditioning. If you come and see me with your crappy shoulder, we're going to spend time doing this. Kin stretch is a class-based system. So I'm going to teach a class, little plug there, maybe teach a class here one day with kin stretch. Kin stretch is a lot like yoga in the fact that we're going to ask you to get into certain positions where you're going to challenge the joint. But the secondary part of that, which I find that yoga sometimes misses a little bit, not taking anything away from yoga, I think it's fantastic, is contracting muscle in certain ranges, which is what everybody needs to do more of as far as I'm concerned. Because if you're up here and you can contract more through an isometric challenge, you'll be a way, I shouldn't say you'll be a way better snatcher, but chances are your overhead stuff will improve as you train overhead. It's kind of simplistic to say that if you want to get better at doing overhead stuff, you probably have to spend more time training overhead. And you can't do that with 150 pounds over your head every day. So what do we have? We have something that creates an isometric contraction overhead. So let's get everybody to stand up. I don't need this thing anymore, do I?